will never work. Like, how could I make this even more extreme than it already was? You know, it won't be me writing it. It'll be this woman that knows nothing about the LGBTQIA community. But also, right about that time, my pastor, or my then pastor, delivered the sermon that is in the play. Like, that really happened to me. It was exactly that sermon. It was put in exactly those terms for exactly the reason that's laid out in the play. And, that was more traumatic, really, than my child coming out and going to school in drag. It was horrible. That'll never work either. Not for me. So those were probably the two kind of leading points that made me start writing the piece. Once I started writing it, I didn't know what was going to happen to it because I thought it was so offensive. The play was really offensive. And I thought no one would ever want to see it, and I would be run out of the country with my hair on fire for writing something like that. And naturally, ironically, it's been like the most successful piece that I've ever written. And it just keeps getting done over and over again. And I'm constantly astonished that people over and over again want to see this woman take this really painful journey, really hard journey that seems to have no end. And it's funny, when I wrote the piece in 2013, I thought things could not possibly get worse for the transgender community. And they've just continued to get worse. At the time when I wrote that, this seemed really extreme, and it doesn't seem extreme anymore at all. And that's really disturbing. But anyway, that's how I came to write the piece. There's enough in it that happened to me to make it ring true. There's enough in it that happened to other people that I just borrowed. And then I kind of infused it with Trish. Trish just sort of took over for me.
Well, thank you. Thank you for those words. I really appreciate that. Oh, and by the way, I want you to know, I think you live very close to our other daughter out in California.
I do.
I know when all this,
her house, she's like a mile away from me or something like that.
When all this madness ends, we're going to have to get together for a glass of wine. What do you think?
That would be so great.
I mean, a mile away in LA is only like an hour drive.
I know, right?
One of the things, I'm Bob's wife, Missy's mom. One of the things I've always loved about this piece is the humor. You have a way with words.
Oh, thank you.
And it comes through. It comes screaming through. So thank you for that.
Sure. I'm glad it's funny. Otherwise, it would be unwatchable.
Yeah, it would be different.
Yeah.
Elise, I have a question for you. Piggybacking off of what you just said, that it started as a 10-minute monologue, is there a section of the play where that still exists? No?
No, it was completely obvious to me as soon as I started writing it that it was never, ever going to be in this monologue, search or anything, because it just went from 10 minutes right into 40 minutes, right into 3 hours, and then it had to be cut down to 80. There was so much to say, and I went so deep in that town. Frankly, I could turn the whole thing into a television series right now. I can tell you everything about everybody in that town. It's crazy. Yeah, no, that 10-minute part, no, that never happened. That was just what started it.
Elise, has there been some negative feedback? Some portions of the country or
it's funny. So I just did a performance of this in South Carolina, and I thought I would be killed. But they loved it. It was just performed in Alabama, and they loved it. When I get criticized from enlightened people on the left who are like, well, I just don't understand why you even wrote this play, because this sort of thing is over, right? It's sort of like racism. It's over. You know, this isn't a problem for the LGBT community anymore. So, you know, why do we have to see this play from this point of view? It's not relevant. So when I do get criticized, it's usually from people who are in a bubble somewhere and haven't been in America at all, and think that I'm writing some horribly exaggerated, you know, fictionalized account of how people who don't know about this community think. So that's the biggest criticism I get, is that it's unrealistic. But most of the time when it's performed, especially in rural areas, people get it right away, and they want to come up afterwards and talk to me and tell me how much it meant to them and how glad they are that they heard it, and that it was written from this perspective especially. You know, this perspective is just not one that you see on stage enough. You know, it's just not. You know, so many plays are about, I don't know, people in their 20s in New York City, and not about, you know, people somewhere else trying to figure things out.
Well, that was one of the things that really drew me to the piece, Elise, was the fact that it was told from the mother's perspective and her going on that journey. And that was the comment I got after when we did it at Toto 2. Someone came up to me and said, thank you. Because my daughter just told me she never thought about my journey and how her coming out had affected me. So it created new conversation and another layer of understanding for the two of them. And that's really what drew me to this piece in the first place, was that it was a mom's end in trying to come to grips with something, the love of her child, and something she just did not understand. And yet she fought fiercely just to be there for her child. And as a mom, that was like right here, you know, it was great. Thank you.
Well, I have to commend you, Susan. You guys probably, none of you know this, but I sent that script to Susan. She didn't know me. I sent it into her slush pile, and she pulled it out of the slush pile. And there are no artistic directors in the universe left, first of all, that have slush piles. Like, Susan's one of the only ones. But then to actually pull a play out of it and produce it is astonishing to me. Like, that's an amazing gift. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, thank you. So what happened is it hit my inbox. I think I may have told you this right before I went on vacation. So I pitched the hard copy to take on the plane, because just the synopsis was like, oh my gosh, this is interesting. I need to see where this is going to go. So I get on the plane, I get my headphones on, you know, I can still hear, you know, people moving and everything going on, the engines going, but I got so sucked in to this world and your characters, and I could see every single thing in my head. I was crying on the plane, I was laughing on the plane, and people were looking at me. My husband was sitting 2 seats over, and he leaned over, he was like, are you okay? I'm fine. Beautiful. And something that can do that in a situation like that, you know, it's an amazing thing, and it doesn't happen a lot. It's very rare that happens. So thank you, and I'm glad it popped in at the time it did.
I was lucky. It was kismet. But another thing I wanted to say is I guess a woman talks for 90 minutes is a hard sell. You know, it just isn't anything, you know, I say it and it sounds like the punchline to some Rodney Dangerfield joke. You know, a woman in this play, a woman talks for 90 minutes about what it's like to be a mom, you know. But that's another thing I don't think I see enough in the theater. I really don't. There ought to be more plays about moms, because moms are cool, and they do important things, and they do take big journeys. And I don't know. I don't think there's enough stories about moms.
I'm wondering if I could ask Missy to talk about performing to the video. So like we talked about the humor being important, and I was kind of noticing, I was almost looking for a laugh track. So Missy, how was it to perform, you know, a show like this when you're used to performing it, I think, live, right? And now you don't have the audience feedback. Did you change things? How did that impact your performance?
Well, this time around, it was really very interesting because I had most of my rehearsals on my sister's back patio in Los Angeles. I was able to secure a dance studio for a few rehearsals. And then towards the end, I rehearsed in my bedroom with a standing record player and 2 stools. Then drove from Los Angeles to Carbondale and ran the show once for Sean Jeffries to set lights. And then ran it a second time in props and costumes. And then we had decided at that point that we were going to record the show instead of live stream it because the technology just wasn't where it needed to be for this story to be as effective as it should be. And the day that we filmed it was on Wednesday, and I did it out of order, actually. So it was quite the exercise in sustaining the emotional through line of the piece, which I found to be very rewarding and challenging at the same time. So I think that kind of transferred a little bit of what I was missing with an audience. That's my favorite part of the theater, is the unknown factor of what an audience will bring in, the kind of energy that they can feed and fuse a performance. So I missed that, but this is not my jam. I hope this doesn't become a popular form of theater. I hope we go back to the audience being in the house. And yeah, it was just a challenge within itself. And I hope that I have a chance to step into Trisha Lee's shoes again with a live audience. Maybe in a couple years, we'll see.
Thank you.
Missy, how many times have you performed it?
Well, this is a new version, actually, than the one that Susan Lyles produced with Toto 2 Theater Company. Elise, you had made quite a few edits, and this is actually a different ending, too. So I performed it maybe a total of 4 times all the way through, once completely off book, and then once when we filmed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's a lot to learn, and then if you're filming it out of sequence, that's even more interesting.
Yeah. Yes, it was very much a challenge, especially as I got towards the end of the show. That was also, I think, Sean, we were on what, hour 6?
Yeah, we got to the bar scene in Joe's room in hour 6.
Yeah, about 6 hours of filming. And I found that I actually had to go back quite a number of pages to ramp up to where I needed to emotionally be, I think, in order to honor what those beats entail, and to really live in Trisha's shoes and tell her story. So, yeah, I guess maybe like 4 times.
Why was it filmed out of sequence?
I'm sorry, what?
Why was it filmed out of sequence? And maybe Sean could talk to that, or somebody, but I'm just like, why wouldn't you just do the whole show just straight through?
Because we had different shots. So there were the wide angle shots, and then it just didn't make sense to film that particular one and then move the camera over to where we needed it for the next one, to move it back over to the same shot that we would use a little later in the play. So we did all the wide angle shots first and then moved to the close-ups. So,
Susan?
Yeah.
What was the rundown in Denver? How many performances?
There were 9. We do 3 weeks of 3 nights a week. So there were 9 performances in total in Denver.
yeah. But I have been living with Trisha Lee, gosh, since Susan gifted me with your wonderful play, Elise. I mean, it was kind of one of those, at first I was like, oh, a conservative Texas woman, that's so not me as an actor, that's not me. And Susan she kept saying, you know, I think you should read this play. I really think that you should come and audition. Are you gonna come and audition? And Susan, I have to thank you again for your leap of faith with me, because we'd never collaborated on anything together other than a couple play readings, but it takes a lot for two people to collaborate on a piece together and build that trust, especially since that was something new, and it flourished into a beautiful, beautiful friendship.
Yes, it did. And we did it again.
Yep.
I want to thank you all for what you've done. And I just think it needs to be seen again and again and again. And I was completely moved. I almost felt like I was holding my breath through the whole thing. And I think that the spirit of, I think it blends so well with what's going on today across the country and across the world. And it's another way of experiencing what it feels like to be different. And I think those of us that are mainstream or white, privileged or whatever, you know, I think it just needs, you said it, and you provided the experience. Anyway, I just think it needs to be seen again and again and by everybody.
I have
on the same lines. I've got another comment or question too. One of the things that struck me was Trisha when she said about sexuality being fluid and running from Charles Bronson to Marilyn Monroe, and that, you know, people, you know, you're falling somewhere in between, which is something, you know, I totally connect to. And so I understand it from a sexuality point of view, but now I'm playing with the idea: is there a fluidity, or is there a range when it comes to, well, let's say discrimination? So the difference between total equality, which was talked about in, you know, what's talked about in the U.S. Constitution, and is there another extreme, which is like the white supremacists? And is there fluidity between those two, or is there no course or dialogue when it comes to diversity? You either accept equality and everybody is equal and we're all one, or it's the other. Is there any range? I just was wondering what people would think about. Is there any range? Where's the room for discussion here? And I see it in sexuality, but I don't see it necessarily when it comes to equality.
I would say everything's a process. Everything is a process. And in our unequal society, getting people to understand the need for equality or what equality looks like is a long, long process. It is for everybody, anybody. We're programmed to mistrust people that are different from us. That's what we do. And so equality means making lots of mistakes and having patience with making lots of mistakes and letting it take a long time. Is that a spectrum? I don't know if that's a way to describe it. I think the way to describe it is not a spectrum, but a process, a painful, lengthy process. And if you just think of well, this sorts of power dynamics that happen in any relationship, in a family, you know, they can be very complex. And then if you take a society, they just get more complex. I think part of the problem is people just want really easy answers, or they don't want to deal with it. And I think that's true for all diversity. People just don't want to deal with it. It's too hard. It's just, you know, it's too much trouble, and we might make mistakes and we might not like each other. And what if we don't? So that's what I think, especially in a place like America that was founded on so much inequality, despite what it says in the Declaration of Independence and everything, that it just takes a really long time, and it's hard, and people screw up at it all the time, so they don't want to do it.
I wonder before, when all this started, whether Tricia, or if it's you, but I mean, Tricia in this place, whether she would have described herself as being somebody who was egalitarian and open and didn't discriminate, and then realizes that when her daughter comes out to her and says, I want to be gender neutral, or I'm going to be, or this is who I am, now she's faced with the fact that maybe she's not what she thought she was. Is that fair?
I think that's absolutely fair. And I think she realizes that. I think she's just very honest about it. I don't think of Tricia as being a really intellectual person, right? She's not thinking, deeply above the situation. She's just in it. But yes, I'm sure she thought of herself as being completely open and completely accepting, and until that diversity landed at her door, she had dreamed of the prom dress and the wedding, and all that. She had a girl. This is how life is going to be, and then when you find out that that's not how life is going to be, it's different.
So maybe there is room to move on the spectrum.
There's room to make progress. Yeah.
To make progress, to move towards that. So wherever you are today, to accept that, and then move toward, move in a certain direction. And hopefully the world isn't moving the other direction. So, and that's the scary part. So.
My reaction to that, though, is that when you are one of the oppressed or one of the marginalized, it doesn't feel good to have the experience of people not having moved further along that spectrum. So while I think we have to accept in some ways that everyone has a process toward, like Tricia Lee says, I hate diversity at one point. While that may be the case, it doesn't feel good to be the person at the other end of that. And so I don't know that there's an easy answer to your question, David, that we should be understanding or accepting of people that are just part way through the process, because that's very hurtful to other people. I have a question for everybody out there, since this was our first attempt at a full-length production streaming, and we have had a number of comments about the sound quality, which is something that if we choose to do this again, we'll definitely be looking at. And there was a last-minute change that we made. We really did plan to use our Thunderstream format to do this, and then we realized really 2 days before that we just wanted to deliver a much higher quality, and I think we really got there with the video aspect, and I think we got as far as we could with the sound aspect. But I'm curious what all of you have to say about the experience of watching a full performance online. We really were trying to walk that line between not trying to be filmed.
I would say that I was very surprised. Now, we did have trouble with the sound. There were lines that we missed. Oops, I see that my internet connection is unstable. Can you hear me?
We can, yeah.
Okay. There were lines that we missed, but the emotion carried through, especially as the play went further on in. I was surprised how powerful it was. So it was great.
Great.
I agree with Peter.
Yeah, I would say that's exactly right.
In the beginning, I was stretching, and then it totally took over. And Missy totally took over, and it wasn't an issue at all.
I would say I agree. At the beginning, Nancy, my sister, and I had trouble understanding, and we kept moving our computer around and could hear a little better. But I was riveted. I mean, I could have watched for another 45 minutes. I was just like, wow.
I think the format, I think, first of all, I think filming it was a great idea because I think you got the quality you wanted. Certainly, you can now address the sound issue the next time you do it. I think the level of performance that came from Missy and the way it was directed and all of that, it played a huge part of making this, in my mind, successful. Because once you got caught, which didn't take very long, you didn't want to let it go. I wanted to stay right there and just find out what was going to happen.
Corey, I would say from, I'm going to speak for you right now.
All right,
I do that every
be
now and
fine.
then. We had the wonderful opportunity to not only see this live, but to also see the film version that you just did. And it was interesting to me, of course, being a performer myself, the thing that I really missed about this is what Missy highlighted a little bit ago, was the audience participation. And by that, not actually booing or cheering, during the performance.
That'd be bad.
But I remember what a strong feeling that was when we watched it down in Denver, and that ending where Missy and the playwright say, "Here's my hand. Please join me. I won't lead, I won't follow, but I'll walk with you." And to watch the people in the theater with us when we did that actually physically reach out their hand to Missy, that was an amazing, powerful moment. And then I felt the same thing watching it as a film, or as a piece that you just produced online. So I mean, it's I didn't walk up to the TV and put my hand out, but I really wanted to. I had that feeling. I really did. So in that respect, I guess my hat is really off to Susan, Elise, and Missy, because you evoked the emotion to make the piece worthwhile. So, okay, and I talked for Wendy, unless you want to talk.
You did. I cried at all the right places. Yeah.
I'm struck by, I'm just thinking about a comparison. Casablanca is a wonderful movie, and it can be experienced in the privacy of your home, just you. And I also had the opportunity to go to a theater in Chicago. It was an old music box theater, and watch Casablanca with hundreds of other people, and it was a very different experience. And both are great. But it's a different experience when you're experiencing it, with others. And I'd like to see this show in the audience. And so when you're reaching out the hands, that you feel like you really could do that, and you're really reaching out and doing that. So I totally get they're both great, but the audience connection is still. To me, is still the ultimate. It's the ultimate way to watch Casablanca. So,
yeah, there's no.
When we originally did this with Toto 2 Theater Company, Susan Lyles, her two boys go to Denver School of the Arts, and she has a lot of connections there. And there was actually one evening when we had about 30. Correct me if I'm wrong, Susan, I think 7th graders?
Yeah, there was, yes. I think
Yeah,
7th or 8th, not sure.
Yeah, from the theater department. And it was amazing at that moment when I said, this is my hand, will you walk with me? And watching 37th graders, like it was breathtaking, and probably something I will never experience again as an actor, and one that I will keep very, very close to my heart.
Yeah, there's a special kind of energy that you get from watching movies or going to a rock concert or any kind of a live performance. We've got that shared experience and the energy that flows through everybody that you're not going to get sitting in front of your computer screen. You know, and even you have someone next to you, it's still not going to be the same kind of energy. And that's, I think, again, that's what makes theater what it is and movies what they are. You know, it's just different. And I do miss that. Same thing in the rehearsal room, being able to actually read the person that you're working with. You feel the energy, and you can tell when something is really working because you both get that back and forth of energy, or you know, the frustration. You can read it better when you're in the room with someone than trying to read a face on a screen. So eventually we'll get back to that, but there's no replacement for that anywhere in any art form, really. That shared energy. Corey, did you see there's a couple of questions in chat?
I haven't seen those questions, but if you want to read them, let's go for it.
Oh, I'm actually put my glasses on. From Sam, Lynn, and Max Putner. We missed the iced tea and treats, and it was fabulous live. So when we did it originally, because we set it in her kitchen and that she invited people in, since we were breaking the fourth wall anyway, we physically broke the fourth wall by Missy sharing tea with members of the audience at the beginning, so that everyone you know, felt like they were in her kitchen with her, trying to make that connection. We did the same thing with cinnamon rolls. At the point where she says she makes cinnamon rolls, she hands out cinnamon rolls to the audience. So that was kind of some action that we put in there. What else? How many, from Sam, Lynn, and Max again, how many people were seeing the pink unicorn for the first time?
We were.
Yeah, we were too.
Yep. And then Greg said he's seen it twice, last night and tonight. Yay.
Oh, good.
So that was it. That's all that's there now. Take my glasses off.
I'm curious. This is more of a general question. Oh, actually, it looks like maybe there are a couple more that popped in there too. This is a more general question. You know, given the tone of all that's happening in our country right now, I'm curious about when you think about a theater going experience, even if it's online, what types of material are you interested in? I think, and we talked about this last night at the Talkback, and we didn't have Elise on with us last night, but one of the things that is so brilliant about this piece is that it is an issue piece, but it has this happy result to it, and it has this beautiful tone, and it has a feel good to it, and at the same time it addresses such an important issue, or important issues, I guess. And I'm curious, with Black Lives Matter and the intense politics and the divides that we have in our country right now, what kinds of theater are you interested in seeing? I mean, if we were looking at doing a real hard-hitting piece or a really heavy drama, are you still interested in that right now? Or are you more interested in light, uplifting comedy, musical theater? It's a general question, but I'm curious what everyone has to say about that.
I want to say that this was sort of perfect for me. Now, I have to admit that as the play was going on, I was really worried that Joe was going to commit suicide.
Me too.
For that. And I was just like, I don't want that to happen. So I really liked the play. It was serious, powerful, but it wasn't a total downer. And I also have to say the part of the play that I related to was when she says, I just want this to be over. I don't like, you know, and I could relate to that too.
Mm-hmm.
I think especially in this kind of, in these times, we really need to have experiences where we have to think about it. We have to be confronted with it, and we have to be educated. And I think we need to be challenge ourselves with thinking about those things.
I love the fact that it's thought-provoking, and I'll admit I was motivated to watch tonight so I could be here at the 9 o'clock feedback. So I mean, you kind of you knew it was going to be a thought-provoking production, and I didn't want to watch it next week when I wouldn't have a chance to do the feedback. So to me, you know, the feedback, this is like really important. And I also think it's important even in live production. I just love the fact that you do feedback, and have the chance to meet the actors and the director and everyone else after each show. I mean, it's one of the things I love about, you know, Thunder River, but having this feedback is, to me, absolutely important. And it's not that important if we're watching a kind of a light piece, but you know, it's I don't know, but when we did the feedback, like after oh, I'm gonna forget the show with the hearing with the woman who's deaf. And,
Tribes.
I'm sorry?
Tribes.
Tribes, right? When we did Tribes, I mean, the feedback afterwards was like, it was just so compelling, and so thank you for that. So that, I'm just gonna, you know, I don't know how I feel. I'm just, yeah, totally motivated to do it tonight so we could participate today.
Yeah, I wonder if in this format, if it's not important to have this gathering afterwards, since we don't have the in-space chance to talk in the lobby and, you know, and share, you know, what we went through and what we felt. I think it might be a really good addition to most pieces. I hadn't even thought about that until this very moment.
Mm-hmm.
I was just looking at it as a talkback, but I think it might be a necessary piece if we continue to do this kind of theater, so we can all share.
Yeah. Hey, Corey, I'm a friend of Missy's, and I don't want to speak for her, but I think there's so many people in the community who are actors and performing artists who were looking to figure out how to continue to perform and still be in quarantine. Mm-hmm. So I just applaud everything here because it's progressive. I mean, you took a risk, and I'd like to see it continue, maybe not indefinitely, but you know, I don't know that the DCPA would do something like this, but I think for people who love the arts, I mean, this is the answer for right now. And I think it's just, it's been really good for Missy too. It brings everything back to wanting to be an actor. And so I applaud you guys for putting this together in this format.
Thank you.
I mean, thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And actually, on that note, by the way, I really want to thank Cameron Blair, who's our managing director and has been helping with the ticketing process. And this is new for all of our patrons, and that process has been pretty crazy, getting everybody on board with that. And then, of course, Sean Jeffries is our sort of wizard behind the curtain that has really just jumped in head first, I'll say, with all of this tech that has been completely new and has just done a masterful job with it. And that includes filming this week, and so many hours for him of editing that together and actually learning a new editing software to do that. And we couldn't be doing this without him too. So if we can just take a moment to thank so I think maybe we have time for one more question if anyone has one, or we can call it a night. But
I have a question for Elise. can you share your daughter's journey since she, she first came out to you?
So my child eventually settled on the non-gender binary. They are they. They did not have I purposely made Joe really together, really clear, really strong, really heroic, really Joe of Arc. And I did that because her mother's such a mess, right? And this is Trisha's play, not Joe's play. But my child's journey is like a lot of trans people's journey. It's been painful and difficult and anxious. I'm really glad when we moved from the cowboy town to Los Angeles, which has a really powerful and enriching and open gay community that has a lot of support. And my child has really been able to make lots of friends, and they're just like my kid. And they sang with the transgender chorus of Los Angeles and Dodger Stadium and with Demi Lovato, and just sort of got really integrated into a community. But it's still very hard. They're still in danger, when the White House passes legislation that they don't have any protections for health care. That's something that affects the whole family, finding a job, finding people that will call them by the right pronoun, having to hide who they are when they apply for a job or not come out and say it, or have people react to the way that they look. I mean, this is something that my kid still has to deal with every day, every hour of every day, and it's really hard. I think they're great. I think they're strong. I think they're awesome. I think they're wonderful and gifted, but this isn't, it's still not a great time to be trans.
Yeah.
We're in a good city to be trans, if there is a good city to be trans right now, but so many people don't understand this, and it makes them really uncomfortable and it freaks them out. And I don't know why, because when you really think about it, gender's nothing. Like, what does it matter? what does it matter? Why does it matter? But I also understand from my own perspective that it's really shocking when somebody says that for the first time and you hear it and it's like, what? Because much like racism, it's something so ingrained our perspective. You're a boy or a girl. How can you, what does it mean? Who are you if you're not that? Who are we if we have equality between the races? Like, what do we do then? What would that look like? What happens to my job? What happens to me? What happens to my identity? It's very upsetting. I don't know. But my kid's okay in a world that doesn't want my kid to be.
What did they think of the play? I mean,
oh, they love the play. They actually tell their friends to watch it all the time. A lot of members of the LGBT community don't have full acceptance by their parents. I'm gonna get really emotional, but for them to see a mother figure that loves their kid no matter what is really helpful and inspiring. It's like seeing a rainbow or a unicorn. There's just so many people out there trying to live their lives knowing that their parents don't support them. and haven't even made an effort to understand them. And so seeing a mom who comes so far in such a bad way, you know, so clumsily and with so much humanity, but makes it, you know, and is still working on it, right? By the end, Trish doesn't have the pronoun right, but, you know, she's trying. It's really inspiring for them. So my kid loves this play. My kid knows that they're my unicorn.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, everybody. Well, I really want to thank again Elise for joining us and for writing this play, and for Susan and Missy for bringing it to Thunder River Theater Company, and also to Wendy and Bob Moore, who were the first ones that actually mentioned this as an idea. So thank you to those two as well.
Hey.
And, you know, we really love all of you who are part of our community and are participating in this. And like Greg even said, I mean, this is a new frontier for us, and it's scary and dangerous and feels edgy. And thank you for hanging in there with us in this experiment. And we're artists. We want to keep creating, and regardless of what's happening in the world, we still have messages and stories to tell the world and share with you. So thank you for supporting us in this process and for your patience while we're learning. So thanks again for joining us, everybody. And thank you to everyone that was involved. And be safe and go out and love everyone. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
Corey.
Yeah, have a good night.
Thanks, Corey.
Thank you. Yeah, nice job.
Missy's, did she take a step away? No, there she is.
Yeah. Hi. Oh, good job, you guys.
Yay.
I almost just showed out into tears right there at the end when Elise was talking.
I know.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. Beautiful work. Corey, thank you. Thank you for letting me come along.
Yeah.
Missy, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, thanks again for jumping into this crazy experience. But
It was good.
I made a new friend. I can't wait to like meet you in person and give you a hug when I can.
Hey. Yeah, when we're allowed to touch each other again. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Missy,
yeah,
have a safe trip home, and I can't wait to hear what's next for you. So
we're bringing Pink Unicorn live to Thunder River Theater Company.
Yeah.
We can.
Okay.
And
have a nice.
all right, you guys. Thank you. Enjoy
Thanks
the
so much. Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Congrats again.